have Sergeant Sharry from the Manchester Emergency Management and Patrolman Yatoro. And they're going to tell us all about fire prevention.
As I said, my name is Robert Sharry. I'm a police officer here in Manchester Township. I've been a police officer here for over 28 years now. I'm a sergeant, and I'm also the OEM coordinator for the town. Connor, how long have you been here now? 10 years, and he's my OEM deputy coordinator. To explain to you what we do, OEM is the Office of Emergency Management. Basically what the Office of Emergency Management do, we coordinate with all the different agencies. Okay, we come out, we coordinate with the governing body here. We coordinate with the police department, fire, first aid, state forest fire, county Office of Emergency Management, state Office of Emergency Management, and pretty much any other agency that you can come up with, we pretty much coordinate with them. So if there's any sort of natural disaster, man-made disaster, whatever the case may be, we are the ones that usually come out. We're not usually the ones coming up to your door helping you, but we're usually the ones coordinating with those agencies to make sure that the aid that you need gets to you. I know the main topic of this meeting right now is fire prevention. So one of the things I always like to talk about is the fires that have happened here in town and also throughout Ocean County. Before I get into that, I've done a lot of these talks with different developments, different retirement developments here in town, and one of the questions that always happened right after California's fire, the big wildfire in the Palisades, is could a fire like that happen in New Jersey? Absolutely it could. Okay, absolutely it could. Now, after saying that it could happen, obviously we had the fire down in Lacey Township. However, things turned out a little bit different. The fires that happened here in Lacey, that was 15,000 acres of wildfire. The fire that happened in California, I don't exactly have the exact acreage of that fire, but how many structures were damaged in that fire and how many people died in that fire versus one commercial structure that happened in the fire here in Ocean County and no injuries. Why did that occur? Okay, why was there a difference there? Ultimately, the difference is the projects that are undertaken between Manchester Township, the volunteer fire company, the paid firemen, and also State Forest Fire. Those projects are designed to keep you guys safe. Reduce the impact of a fire if a fire does start. And it's not if a fire really starts, it's when a fire starts. There are always going to be wildfires of some sort. The problem with California is they're not allowed to do a lot of these projects that New Jersey does. New Jersey State Forest Fire comes in, they'll do prescribed burns, which that's when they come in on property, you'll see them light fires, usually in early to late spring. They'll usually start little brush fires that burn all that undergrowth. Burn the pine needles that dropped from the prior fall, burn the leaves that fell during the fall. And the reason for that is if a fire starts, it removes all that fuel from the fire. So they do those projects. They also do mechanical thinning projects. Out in Whiting, they did a lot of this where they thinned the woods out about 200 feet back from all the homes. It was state property. They were allowed to get onto that property and clear that property back. And that's usually about a 5-year project. What State Forest Fire does is they sit down with us and they come up with what's called the CWPP, the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And what that plan does, we sit down with the State Forest Fire, we sit down with the volunteer fire chiefs, we sit down with members of the community and come up with areas that need to be remediated. And that could be areas around your development here. That, hey, you know what, this piece of property has a lot of undergrowth here, it hasn't been burned in a couple of years, maybe this area should be done. And what it is, it's a 10-year project of things that need to be done to reduce all of these fuels and to keep you guys safe. To keep the fires, when they do start, not to get into developed areas. So, like I said, that's a 10-year project. Even though it may not, it's literally laying it out from 2023 when we signed it all the way through 2033. And when we're going to do these projects, who's going to fund these projects, stuff along those lines. Obviously, things can change if an area gets worse, if a development gets put in, but these projects are what's designed to reduce the impact of the fire. Unfortunately, California does not do that. They're doing it now after getting a lot of grief and a lot of press and everything. Now they're starting to do some of these projects. But my daughter, last year I moved my daughter out to California. She moved out there with her husband due to the military. And I go out there, I've been a police officer for 28 years. I've been part of EMS for 32 years. I've been doing this a long time. As soon as I go out to California, I'm driving around California looking at it going, how is this state not burnt to the ground? Because they're not doing any of these projects. They have dead grass that's 3 feet tall right up against the curbs. You know, these are all projects that State Forest Fire tries to remediate and to stop these fires from happening. Then there's also the question that came up, and the same thing in the news media, and I try not to get one side or the other politically, and I won't do that. But one of the things that came up in the media was the insurance getting canceled on a lot of these houses. You know, oh, why'd the fire insurance get canceled on these houses? Professionals came into California and said, hey, you need to do remediation in this area, otherwise you're going to have a really bad fire. So what does the insurance company do? They look at it and go, okay, you're not doing it, you're not correcting it, you're not correcting it, you're not correcting it. This is too big of a threat for us, we're canceling it. If you go out and get into a car accident this week, and you get into a car accident next month, and you get into a car accident the month after that, what's your car insurance going to do? Either go up, or they're going to cancel you entirely. And ultimately, that's what the insurance companies did with the fire risk. They looked at it and said, this fire risk is way, way too high for us, and they canceled the insurance. Now, that's not good, number one, for the residents who are rebuilding their homes, but New Jersey doesn't have that problem because ultimately New Jersey State Forest Fire comes in and does these projects to reduce the fuel. So when a professional comes in and says, hey, there's a problem here, they do everything in their power to reduce that threat. This year was a little bit different, the earlier part of this year, because really we had a very dry winter last year. We were in a drought over the spring, so you didn't see them do a lot of prescribed burning this year. Normally they're doing it usually from middle of February till the end of March in that area. They're doing them every weekend that they can, that the weather is good, they'll be doing those prescribed burns. This year they only did 2 or 3 here in town. And that's ultimately because it was as dry as it was this summer, or this winter. So you didn't see a lot of it. Hopefully we'll have a much wetter winter this year and they can get back on their normal prescribed burning and get these projects done. One of the other things that I was asked to bring up here, and I'm sure this is what a lot of people want to know about, is the change in the Uniform Fire Code here in New Jersey. Okay? And specifically what I'm talking about is mulch. And I'm sure everybody's aware of it. What ended up changing, I believe it was April 15th it went into action. It's about 2 years back they actually passed the law. They gave about 2 years for everybody to start complying with the law. And what the law says is they want mulch removed back 18 inches from any combustible material. Okay? Specifically, it's any any resident that's commercial, such as this building, it's a commercial building, or any structure that is rented or has 3 or more occupants, being separate dwellings. So a quad, such as that you guys have here, if you're living in a quad or larger, that you would have to adhere to this as well. And basically what it says is 18 inches back and 36 inches up. If there's any combustible material in that area, they would like the mulch pulled back the 18 inches. And ultimately what you can do is you can pull that mulch back and you have a couple options. You can have stone, you can have dirt, sand, and supposedly, and I have not seen it for myself, non-combustible mulch. Exactly what that is, I've asked questions and I've asked to see it. Possibly it's the rubber mulch that they're putting down on playgrounds, but I haven't gotten a definitive answer on that. So I use my house as an example. I live out in Roosevelt City. I live right on the other end of town. Half of my house is brick. I have a brick face on half of my house and half of it is vinyl. The half that's brick, I have brick 8 feet up. Technically, I wouldn't have to remove the mulch back the 18 inches. The other half of the house, I only have foundation about 18 inches up. Then it goes into vinyl siding. So on that half of the house, I would have to remove the mulch back the 18 inches. Technically, I don't have to adhere to the law because I'm in an owner-occupied house. It's a single dwelling attached. However, that being said, I'm doing it myself on my house. Why? There's 2 reasons. Number one, I'd be pretty hypocritical if I'm coming up here and telling you, hey, you should really do this, and I don't do it to my own house. But also, it's there as a safety thing. Even if you don't have to do it to your house, you're not you fall outside of the parameters of what needs to be done, you should still really do it on your house. It's a safety feature for your house, whether it be from the wildfires like we were talking about before and the embers dropping on your house, whether it's somebody comes out and takes a cigarette and throws a cigarette down there. There's multiple ways a fire can start. And ultimately, what is mulch? It's chopped up wood that lays out in the sun and dries out. It's just asking to be lit on fire. Okay? It's putting a combustible material right up against your house. One of the other things that's changed over the last couple of years, well, not couple of years, several years. Years ago, everybody had aluminum siding on their house. And, aluminum siding's great. It's metal, doesn't burn, yeah, it dents, and it has to be painted. But they came out with this really good product, vinyl siding. Never has to be painted. You know what's also really good about vinyl siding? It burns like crazy. So that's ultimately with this mulch. When you have mulch on the ground and it starts a fire, it's going to go right up to that vinyl siding that's on most of your houses and light up on fire. Okay? And I go through, like I said, I do these speeches in all the different communities. You go out into a lot of the Crestwood villages, they have brick on their houses 4 feet up. Okay? Technically, they don't have to adhere to it because they have more than that 36 inches. But then there's other houses that have to because they have vinyl siding or they have wood siding. A lot of your siding is wood and vinyl here, correct? Mostly vinyl? Okay. Okay, the aluminum ones aren't as bad because the aluminum's not going to catch fire as readily. But you still have to be concerned that, hey, you know what, that mulch then catches to a bush and it can get the wood behind the aluminum burning as well. Like I said, it's a safety feature. Even if you don't have to do it, it's a good practice to get this mulch removed back from your house. Here in town, I'm bouncing around a little bit, and I apologize because I was told that I need to sort of stay in one area. And I usually walk around, so I'm sitting here like rocking back and forth because I want to walk. So I'm sort of bouncing around a little bit. When we were talking about the fires that have happened here in Ocean County, like I said, that was last year, correct? The big fire? Or this year? 2 years ago? The Lacey one. Last year. Lacey fire was last year. A year prior to that, we had the Jimmy's Waterhole fire, which was 4,000 acres that burnt out here in town. Okay, so that was a relatively large fire. During that, one of the things that we coordinated under OEM is the evacuation of about 171 houses, I think it was. We evacuated 38 horses, 4 cows, like 8 goats, and a bunch of other animals that I can't remember. Hey, not too many people can say they evacuated 38 horses. We can. But one of the things that does end up happening, we use Nixle, which is one of the emergency notification systems. We use that to notify people. Okay? When a fire starts, whether it, the one down in Lacey or Jimmy's Waterhole fire, if you feel threatened by the fire in any way, you're always able to evacuate your house on your own. Okay? So if you have friends that live in Point Pleasant, just for argument's sake, and you know what, hey, the fire's getting a little too close to my house, I'm gonna go to my friend's house in Point Pleasant. Go. By all means, go make yourself safe, do what you feel that you have to do to keep yourself safe. Now that being said, when we evacuate an area, if I'm looking at Leisure Village here, how many homes are in the village in total? What was that? I'm sorry. 2,700 homes. Manchester's average for a house is about 2.5 to 2.6 people per household if you average the whole house together. So if I'm looking at Leisure Village and I say, okay, I'm going to evacuate this entire area, I'm roughly looking at, yeah, well, I go off that average of that 2.5 people. What was that? Yeah, most of your, yeah, occasionally here and there, but that's why they average it out. So I'm looking at someplace 5,000 to 6,000 people. So when I open up a shelter or request the county to open up a shelter, whatever way we end up doing it, is I open up a shelter for a pre-designated amount of people. And when we did it for Jimmy's Waterhole Fire, which was the one a couple of years ago, we were evacuating about 200 homes, 2.6 people, let's figure on 500 people. So that's what I needed to open up a shelter for, roughly about 500 people. And what ended up happening is there were certain developments that were not threatened by the fire that ended up evacuating and coming into the shelter area. By all means, I'm never going to turn anybody away. If you're uneasy being in your house, by all means, come over to the shelter. However, if you're not asked to evacuate your development, that usually means your development's not being threatened by whatever natural disaster we're looking at, being a fire. So I could overwhelm a shelter. If I had 1,000 people show up at a shelter that I only thought 500 were going to show up at. So what usually ends up happening is a nixle would go out. Hey, we need this area to evacuate. Hey, we're going to be opening up a shelter here. We would put it out in a nixle, and we run buses as well. We'd be coming into your development here. If I were evacuating this development, we'd send out a nixle to the development and say, hey, we're evacuating Leisure Village West. Shelter's going to be open up at the high school, just for argument's sake. I don't know why I would evacuate this development and send you all to the high school, but let's use it as an example. And at that point, I'd be running buses. Most likely, I'd bring Manchester Township school buses. I'd bring them either to this area here or up to the Encore Clubhouse up there. And I'd have the police department, fire, and first aid going around to assist people. Anybody that obviously can drive on their own would be able to evacuate on their own and go to the shelter or go to wherever they want to shelter on their own. But if you're unable to drive, if you're bedbound, if you're anything along those lines, the police department and first aid would be coming around and assisting and bringing you over to the buses. And then I'd be running the buses. I'd have the Manchester Township Board of Education driving the buses to wherever our shelter ended up being. When we had the Jimmy's Waterhole Fire 2 years ago, that was out off of Horicon Road out in Whiting, which is a little bit further out towards the base. We opened up a shelter at the high school. When the fire happened down in Lacey Township last year, the county called and said, hey, can you open up a shelter for us? So ultimately we did. We opened up Manchester Township High School, and we opened up a shelter for Lacey residents. And then the question was asked, why did Manchester open up that shelter? Well, ultimately, it's the neighborly thing to do. I'm here to help whoever. I'm not just here to help residents of Manchester Township. We're here to help whoever. Now, next year the fire could be in this town, and I could be requesting the same thing of Lacey Township. I need a shelter outside of this area. I'd be requesting Lacey. So you know what? One hand washes the other. I'm helping them in this fire. Hopefully I don't need them, but if I do, you know, they would open up a shelter for us. The sheltering process. When we open up a shelter here in town because of an evacuation, whether it be because of a fire, a Hurricane Sandy type event, whatever the case may be, large-scale power outage during extreme cold, which we had 2 years ago as well, we open up the shelter and you're allowed to bring your animals with you. Okay? Each time we opened up the shelter, we had the CART team come in from the county, which is the animal care team, comes in from the county. They bring in food. They bring in crates for your animals. They bring in a whole bunch of equipment just to take care of the animals. What they did in the one gym off to the right in the high school was they made that their animal reception area. And they even put crates or bunk beds in there, or beds in there for you, so you could stay with your dog. The one thing that we do ask is we'll take in pretty much any animal that comes along. It's really only designed for domesticated pets, being, you know, cats and dogs, but I'm not going to turn around and tell you to leave your, you know, macaw, parrot, or whatever the case may be. Bring it. That being said, and I always get a laugh when I say this, I'm not telling you to not bring your pit bull that's gonna, and I shouldn't pick on pit bulls because it's a wrong thing to do. But your pit bull that likes ripping people's arms off, I'm not telling you not to bring your dog. I'm asking you to please call the police department and say, hey, I have an aggressive dog, can you help? And we would send our animal control officer over to help you and assist you remove it. Same thing, if you have that pet cobra that you like playing with, please don't walk into the shelter with your pet cobra on your arm. Tell us in advance and we'll make some sort of arrangements. And I'm being facetious when I say your pet cobra, but whatever it happens to be, if it's a dangerous animal, please let us know. We'll assist you in any way that we can caring for your animal. Just let us know in advance. The CART team sends people over, like I said, that are trained in dealing with animals. The one shelter we opened up, I think it was the power outage, some poor woman's pug started having breathing problems. And we ended up, the CART team asked for oxygen and we gave them oxygen out of a police car and they were putting oxygen on the pug and the pug apparently made a full recovery. So they're there to help, okay? Same thing with the buses. The buses and the aides that are on the buses are all been informed that you're allowed to get on the bus with your animal. Please, same thing, the dangerous ones, let's curtail that a little bit and make a phone call. But they're known that if you get on the bus with your cat, your dog, you're allowed to get onto the bus, you're allowed to bring it to the shelter, and arrangements will be made once we get to the shelter. One of the other shelters we opened up and we brought it up before was the power outage out in Whiting. I know that was December 23rd. It was the day before Christmas Eve last year, 24. And we had a large-scale power outage in Whiting that took out most of the power in Whiting. And ultimately, it was, I think, 8 degrees out in the morning. Now, once dealing with JCP&L, and you guys have all dealt with JCP&L as much as I have, once you get the right person on the phone, which we have our own representative, I needed to know what kind of power outage, because you know what, when you call the phone line, 1 to 2 hours, it'll be back on in 1 to 2 hours. Well, I'm not going to open up a shelter if you're talking about 1 to 2 hours. It takes me an hour and a half to open a shelter. If the power is going to be back on in 2 hours, 2 hours went by and no power is back on. Okay, so I got in contact with my contact there and said, how long is it going to be? Oh, it's going to be several hours. So at that point, we made the decision to open up the shelters, just because it was that cold in people's residence that we couldn't allow them at 8 degrees. Your house isn't going to stay warm for very long without a fireplace, you know. So we opened up a shelter at that point. We had the shelter open for a little bit, just about 24 hours in total. We had the shelter open, then the power started coming back on. Once the power started coming back on, we started getting people back into their houses, which was either if they drove to the shelter on their own, they could drive back to their home, or we started running the shuttle buses back, you know, and getting people back in their homes that way. So these are just a couple times that we've coordinated with everybody from the county to State Forest Fire to JCP&L to the road department, because we had Department of Transportation out to assist us with the lights, the Sheriff's Department to assist us with the traffic lights. Because when you knock out power in half of a town, you know, when we have 5 or 6 police officers on, 4 ambulances on, you can overwhelm those resources very quickly. And that's ultimately what Office of Emergency Management is to do, coordinate with all those other agencies to get the help, and also assist other agencies. When they call and say, Tom's River calls and says, hey, we need police officers. Okay, we send police officers. So, any comments, questions? Yes, ma'am.
When there's a fire or starting a fire, like say God forbid there was one in this community,
Yes.
or one of the houses started or whatever, and one starts at that, how do we get notified? From you guys? Is it a one-call system?
Usually what we do is we use the Nixle system, which is a text message. It can also go over landline, stuff along those lines. I'm not entirely fond of the Nixle system, but it's the best thing that we have right now. And what Nixle does is we put it out. I can put it out from my police car. He can put it out from his police car, or our dispatchers can put it out and say, hey, we have a fire in Leisure Village West. We need an evacuation order called. We'll call into dispatch, or like I said, I can do it from my computer, and we'll put it out via Nixle. The problem with Nixle is each individual text message cannot be more than 138 characters. We can do something on the bottom called a hyperlink. When you look at the text message, there's a little hyperlink on the bottom. But as a police officer, what do I tell you to do? You don't know the hyperlink, don't click on it, and don't go to it. So what do? I send you a hyperlink. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll send out multiple text messages. If I need to get out a bunch of information, hey, Leisure Village West needs to evacuate due to a fire, it might be another text message saying, hey, the shelter is opened up at Manchester Township High School, this is the address. It could be 3 or 4 text messages, and that's why instead of sending one big text message, if you're text messaging your kids, you can send one text message that's 4 pages long. I'm unable to do that due to the system.
Will we get one of those emergency alert things that they go?
No. That emergency alert is only done through when certain agencies, and usually it has to be FEMA or the National Weather Service puts out an alert. They can override the cell system. I cannot override the cell system. I can only do the Nixle. The county can't do it. The state is the only one. And when they do it, they blanket an entire area. They say, okay, we want New Jersey done. So they would have to send out that emergency alert to all of New Jersey. So we try and keep it on that smaller scale through Nixle, but it'll also be on social media. We have one officer that goes in and goes onto Twitter and Facebook and puts all this stuff out there. Not that I'm saying, hey, go onto Facebook when there's a fire in your development, but.
But like if it's in the middle of the night and you're texting people, we're not going to know that.
Well, unfortunately, you should keep your phone on. I mean, if it was in the middle of the night and I was calling for an evacuation, we'd be sending multiple police vehicles, fire vehicles, EMS vehicles through the area, and they would probably be going with lights and sirens on the entire time. Why? Just to wake people up. Yes, within whatever area.
Because if an ambulance comes in, you never hear the sirens. They just.
Well, because most of the time, what are we trying to do? We're trying to be considerate and not wake up everybody when we're going into a development. However, if I'm going in with the purpose of waking you up.
Yes, I know. Well, we also have a system where they call us.
Yes.
If somebody has to, who's going to do that?
Oh, the Nixle system and the township has a reverse 911 that will make phone calls as well. So if we needed to evacuate a large area, we'd be blanketing multiple things. We'd be doing the reverse 911, we would be doing Facebook and all of those, we would be doing Nixle system, and we would be putting it out across all of them. But we would be trying to put it out to the smallest area possible. I don't want to send it out to the east end of town. If I need your development to evacuate, I want your development to evacuate. Just because of that reason before, hey, I don't want to overwhelm a shelter. If I don't need to evacuate Leisure Ridge, which is over there, I think it's over there, from where I'm standing, somewhere over there. If the fire's burning this way, I'm not going to evacuate Leisure Ridge. If I start evacuating them, I could overwhelm our resources when I don't have to. But I'm always going to try and do it in as much advance notice as I can. Obviously, I'm not going to wait till the fire's, lapping at your back door to say, hey, you need to evacuate. I'm going to work with the different agencies. I'm going to work with State Forest Fire, and they're usually going to give me, okay, we need to go now. You need to start the evacuation now. They're the ones that usually give me the heads up that, hey, this isn't looking good. We're not going to be able to stop this right away. Let's do it. And that's when we call the evacuation. We're always going to give you as much pre-notice as we can, and we're going to take into account that factor of it being in the middle of the night. If the fire is burning at 10 o'clock at night, hey, if it gets real bad by 2 o'clock, we're going to have a harder time evacuating people. Why don't we start the evacuation now? So, yes, ma'am, I know you had your hand up.
Yeah, I had a question about the sheltering process. Is that like a first come, first served type of thing? And is any ID necessary to show at the shelter?
No, we're never going to turn anybody away. If obviously we start using the high school as an example and opening up the high school and saying, okay, we're going to open up the high school as a shelter, and I notice it getting too full, okay, we've only been open for an hour and we're already at 70%, I might turn around at that point and say, I need to open up another shelter. And that's when going to these neighboring jurisdictions, hey, Lacey, I helped you out last year, I need a shelter opened up. And they would open up one of their high schools, or Tom's River, they might open up the, I don't know what it's called anymore, I'm sorry, the Rataco Center, the Poland Springs Center, the RWJ, whatever it's called now, that over at the high school, whatever it's called now, I would probably call over to Tom's River and say, hey, I need more beds, and they would open up a shelter for me at that point. We're never going to turn around and say, hey, we're full, sorry, we can't take you. An ID, no. Nope. If you come there and say, I need a shelter, they like to get information from you because they want to know who's in the shelter. After the sheltering process, they usually give me a report and say, hey, we had 400 people show up at the shelter, we had 75 dogs, 13 cats, you know, whatever the case may be. The American Red Cross usually comes out and assists us with the shelter, and they're very good logistically. They usually bring their cantina over, their truck that will have coffee and fruit and vegetables and stuff along those lines, their crackers and everything, so you have something to eat. And they'll actually work with, if it turns into a larger scale where, hey, we need breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they work with different agencies around to bring in sandwiches for lunch and hot meals for dinner. They'll work with us, but they give me the report at the end. So no, you don't need ID, but they are going to be asking you for some particular information just so they can keep records.
Have you ever had an issue?
Have we ever had an issue at a shelter? Other than when we opened up the shelter, I had 3 wheelchairs in the shelter and all 3 wheelchairs went missing. And I still don't know who has them. Everybody denies it, but yet now I'm on the hook for 3 wheelchairs. That's probably the biggest, that and the pug. The pug with the breathing problems.
They don't go to the shelters,
What do you mean?
so just so many show up.
What, overwhelming the shelters? Are you asking? I've never had a problem with overwhelming the shelters. The question has been asked, and I know in Jimmy's Waterhole fire, one issue came up, and specifically State Forest Fire asked me about it. Officers and firefighters were going to homes and saying, okay, we need you to evacuate your home, and the resident didn't want to go. Okay? What can we do? What did we do? There's multiple options. Yes, I could turn around once I declare a state of emergency and we have the power to start a localized state of emergency, which at that point, yes, we can force you from your house. You don't want to leave your house. Am I going to tie up 2 officers forcing you from your house and possibly arresting you when everybody else in this room needs help? The answer is going to be, we'll come back and check on you, but I can't guarantee we can make it back later. So what we do is we send the officers on, start clearing out the rest of the area that needs to be cleared. Once the rest of the area is safe, then we would probably go back and deal with them at that point and say, hey, the fire's by you, the fire's not by you, whatever the case may be. What do you want to do? But there's people, I can tell you during the Jimmy's Waterhole fire, that didn't want to evacuate. And you know what? What am I going to do? Am I going to tie up 2 officers dealing with that one person? Or am I going to send those 2 officers to people that want and need the help? So ultimately, I send them to the people that want and need the help. And if later on, after it calms down a little bit, then I'll send officers back to that house to assess the situation at that point. Yes, sir.
What kind of accommodation, if any, do you make in the shelters for individuals who have medical conditions or require specific medical equipment?
Most likely what we're going to do, and I want to go back a little bit, if we were doing an evacuation, and I said that before, I would bring buses into a common area such as this to facilitate the evacuation. What I would be calling for is, number one, is something called a MAV, which is a mass evacuation bus. Ocean County has one, and Monmouth County both have one. The Monmouth County bus specifically, I'm not sure about the Ocean County, the exact numbers, but they can take 18 people prone, lying down, and another 12 wheelchairs. So if we have people that are bedbound people, I'd be sending an ambulance out to their house to assist them on a stretcher. I'd be bringing them back to the MAV, getting them onto those accommodations onto the bus, and then once the bus is filled, we'd be transporting them at that time. Most likely what we're going to do is we're going to go to either a skilled nursing facility or a hospital. If they need medical equipment that we don't have access to, ventilators, stuff along those lines, most likely we're going to send them to a facility that does have that and then facilitate them getting back. If you're talking about somebody that has oxygen we can deal with. Minor stuff we can deal with. You know, we have EMS. Every shelter, when we open up a shelter, at minimum is going to have 2 EMTs and an ambulance there. Okay? If somebody ends up having some sort of medical emergency when they're at the shelter, those EMTs will handle that medical emergency, and I'll call another ambulance in to stand by at the shelter when they're transporting that person to the hospital. But if it's anything that is outside of an EMT's scope, we'd be transporting them at that point to either a skilled nursing facility, one of the nursing homes that has people on staff that can deal with it, or right to the hospital, same thing. And the emergency room would end up taking them just as not an emergency incident, but just as a housekeeping, for lack of a better term, to care for that person until they're able to get back into their house. Yes, ma'am.
Getting back to in-home safety, fire extinguishers.
Yes.
I have 2 fire extinguishers. I moved here 7 years ago. I don't know if they're good, they're not good, if they're filled, or if you gotta do something with it.
Usually,
I'm sure I'm not the only one.
the regular commercial grade fire extinguishers, which I don't see one in this room, great. It's in the kitchen. A regular commercial grade, you'll see a tag on it. And on that tag, it has a punch hole in it for what month it was inspected and also the year. So those, yep, there you go. That tag right on there, that's a home grade one, but it has the gauge on it. Your best bet is if it's more than a couple years old, either get in contact with one of the fire extinguisher companies. Connor's going to look to see if he can grab a fire extinguisher. There's one over there. Or purchase a new one. They're only good for a certain period of time. They are compressed gas that are inside of them. Yeah, they're like Connor's got this one in his hand right now. That's the tag that's on that. That's a regular commercial grade fire extinguisher. But some of the ones that you buy from Lowe's that don't have these tags on them, they'll have the gauge on them. Now, most of the time, as long as that gauge it's got the little needle in it, is in the green, it has gas in it. But these are not good indefinitely, just like your fire extinguishers.
It's 7 years old, I go to grab it, and it's not gonna be.
Honestly, and what the exact recommendation is, I wouldn't be going anywhere past between 3 and 5. 3 and 5 years if it's a regular, I hate to say Walmart grade or Lowe's grade, and it's not one that looks like this, which you can get these at Lowe's and Walmart. You know, if it's a regular one like this, you can send it out and have it checked. If it's not one of these, send it out, keep it in your house. I'm not saying get rid of it, but get another one. The commercial grade ones like this, yes, they'll refill it and they check the pressure and they put a new tag on it just like this one. This one was done in 25. If I had my glasses on, which are hanging around my neck, I could see it.
October of 25.
October of 25.
Just got done.
You can't refill it. There are companies, if it's one like this, you can get in contact with companies, and I can't give you the company names, but this one's Atlantic. There's a bunch of companies out there. If you go through the phone book, I'm dating myself again. Go through Google and find out, fire extinguisher companies in your area. There are companies that will redo it if it's like this. Yeah,
I do too. I do.
there's some younger people in the room that doesn't know what a dial phone looks like either, but that's besides the point. Hold on one second. That woman back there has had her hand raised for a little while. Your best bet is, once the pressure is let out of the fire extinguisher, there's nothing wrong with them anymore. If you needed to dispose of your fire extinguisher, if it's still showing pressure, I would keep it in your house. I put it out in the garage. Get a new one that's good and in date, but keep the old one. I'm not telling you the old one's not going to work. It may work, it may not work. Keep the old one around. I mean, obviously you don't want 12 of them hanging out in your garage. I don't think you really need that. But you can just discharge the fire extinguisher into a garbage can outside your house, not inside your house, because it's a lot of dust and not very good. You can bring them over to the firehouse. You can bring them over to the EMS building on Colonial Drive right over here. Say, hey, I got a new fire extinguisher. I just want to get rid of this one. And they'll discharge it and throw it in the dumpster once it's discharged. The blankets are very good. The blankets are really designed for, especially stove cooking, anything along those lines, because you need to smother the fire is ultimately what it is. Would I do that if your couch was on fire? No. But you have something on your stove and it starts to burn, the blankets. And that's your best bet. And that's ultimately what even the Uniform Fire Code changed a little bit. It used to be that you had to have a fire extinguisher in your kitchen. They don't even want that anymore. They basically want you, once the fire starts, to get out of your house. They don't. No, you do not. Not anymore. Within the past 2 years or so, they changed it where this isn't even required inside your house anymore, because they don't want you fighting the fire inside your house. They would rather you vacate the house, call 911, and let the fire company come in and put it out. Because they found that more people were getting injured trying to fight the fires than were. Your house is replaceable. You know what? That's what insurance is for. Your house is completely replaceable. You are not. So your best bet is get out of your house, get someplace safe. Yes, ma'am.
How do you use that?
All fire extinguishers, I shouldn't say all, most fire extinguishers all work the same way. You have the safety pin, there's this cable on here so the safety pin doesn't come out. You break the safety pin, which is this orange cable is very easy. You pull the pin out and you can unclip the hose. And you depress it just like you would, a garden hose when you're squeezing a garden hose, anything along those lines, and you want to sweep back and forth at the base of the fire. Okay? These are designed to put out small fires. You have one of those rolling garbage cans on fire, it's designed to put that out. It is not designed to put out, the left side of your house is on fire. That's not what it's designed for. Small fires before they get out of control. But like I said, now they're even getting to the point where, hey, get out of the house, dial 911. That's the main thing. Get out safely, that's your main thing. So, small fires. Even this one, this is a slightly larger one. This is about usually what we carry in the police cars. Small fires. Anything too large, you're going to run out before it completely puts the fire out, and you're going to be waiting for the fire company anyway at that point.
In your opinion, why does that needle never change?
It shouldn't change. It should only change once you break the seal on it and you pull it, because that's reading the amount of pressure that they put into this tank. When they put the dry chem in there, which this is what this should be, is the dry. Yep, it's a dry chem fire extinguisher. It's a yellow powder material that it's in there, almost looks like talcum powder. They put a certain amount in there and they put a certain amount of pressure in there. Now, if that needle stays right where it should, it means there's no leaks on the fire extinguisher itself, and it should be good for a prolonged period of time. They want them checked every year though. They should be checked every year by a professional and say, yes, they're good. The home ones, they're usually, like I said, the ones that have like the plastic up top and everything, they're still good. They're still fire extinguishers. They'll still do the job. They're just not designed to be reused. The needle should always stay in there. Once you use the fire extinguisher, you're going to notice that the needle drops, and at that point, it has to be refilled.
Now it's not needed anymore, right? Fire extinguisher.
Yeah, once it's used, no.
No, I'm saying
It's
get rid of it. In other words, if you don't ever use it, fine. If you don't need to buy another one, if you don't just get out.
yeah, they've changed the Uniform Fire Code with the restrictions in the house. Like I said, they used to want them. There had to be one within so many feet of your kitchen, and they've since changed that because, like I said, they'd rather have people vacate the house and not be injured than try and put out a grease fire on their stove. But yes, the blankets are another option, but same thing. The fire has to be smaller than that blanket. If that fire is larger than that blanket, it's not really going to work. It's only going to smother part of it. So same thing, designed for very small fires. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if this is relevant. I think some people are starting to get their own home generators.
Yes.
Is there any risk or anything we should be concerned about with people using generators?
Not really. I mean, home standby generators have been out for a lot of years. Most, and I'll say most, run off of natural gas. There's something called an ATS, which is an automatic transfer switch that automatically detects when power is lost to the house, and then the generator automatically starts up. There's really no threat to the house as long as it's installed by a professional and it's wired properly and put in the right location. Obviously, you don't want a generator that's burning combustible fuel right under somebody's bedroom window. But if a reputable company comes out and installs them properly, absolutely not. And I think it's a great tool So when you do have these power outages, when it's 8 degrees outside, you can be comfortable in your house and safe.
Proper storage of propane and gasoline. Give us a little bit of.
Yep. Any of that stuff, propane, number one, you should not be keeping in your house. Okay? Should not be keeping in your garage. If you're going to store any of that stuff, whether it be propane, gasoline, anything along those lines, your best bet is in an outdoor shed away from your house. Because obviously when a fire does start, you have a propane tank inside your house, it is going to explode. I've heard them explode. Connor's heard them explode in people's houses. It doesn't make the fire any easier to put out. And it's also at that point a threat to yourself. It's a threat to the police officers, the firemen, anybody else that's on scene. So keep that away from the house. At least at that point, if the fire does start out there, number one, it's not going to hopefully burn your house down if it's out and away from your house.
Obviously, the most important timely thing is the notification that it's an impending fire.
Yes. And it's not even the danger. It's an impending fire is coming your way. And you know what? We may send out multiple messages over a night. Hey, we have a fire in the area of Leisure Village. No evacuation has been ordered yet, but there's a fire in the area. You know, crews are on scene. An hour later, hey, it's getting a little bit closer. Hey, you might, you know, it's a voluntary evacuation at this time.
The takeaway from this for most of us is we have to keep our cell phones on at night. Normally, I turn them off. So that's something I can't do.
No, you're, okay, but that's what I just, the reverse 911 call would go out across the landline to anybody that has a landline in a specific area. But if you turn your cell phone off at night and you don't have a landline, how would the notification be made to you? It won't. It absolutely won't. Unless the police cars driving through your area wake you up. That's about the only thing. Now we have one question that came. Obviously there's a, there's a lot of Jewish people that are moving out of Lakewood and moving into Manchester Township. And one of the problems that we've had is on Saturdays, they don't use any technology. They don't use any cell phones. They don't use any home phones. How are we going to do notifications to them? And that's one of the problems that we run into with that particular community is how do I make the notifications to them? There are usually members of the community that are allowed to use their phones. They're usually emergency representatives, and I would be getting in contact with them. And that's ultimately the only reason why, or the police cars driving through the area. But same thing, if I have 5 police cars driving through the village here, notifying you of an emergency, they're not helping people evacuate. So that's why, honestly, keeping your cell phone on at night, absolutely critical. If the National Weather Service puts out a tornado warning and your cell phone's not on, what does that tornado warning do for you? Nothing. So your best bet is keep your cell phones on at night. Yes, ma'am.
I could be wrong, but I would believe that the police department has an emergency contact for Leisure Village West.
Yes.
So that if it was somebody here in our village, that would be the first person that they would go to, and then that one call could go out from there.
It could, but I'm not going to rely on that one person. And honestly, she probably wouldn't be our first call. Once I identified an emergency and I was told that, hey, there's an emergency in this area, I'm going to start doing the notifications. I'm going to start sending out the nixles. I'm going to start sending out the reverse 911s. And at some point, relatively quickly, yes, the community would be the emergency contact for the community. Hey, put them on, notice that, hey, we have a fire in the area. We have whatever the case may be in the area. So yes, they would be notified. Like I said, I'm not going to rely on them sending it out because God forbid their computer crashes that's doing their 911 or their reverse call, their one call. I'm not going to rely on that. I'm going to want this information out as quickly as I can via sources that I know work. And ultimately our phone system at work, we're upgrading our entire dispatch center right now. And one of the things that I'm doing is I'm making sure that there's redundancy in the radio system, redundancy in the phone system. So if the internet goes down, it's not going to affect our phones. So that's why we do things the way that we do them, that there's redundancy. So when I put out this call or Connor puts out this call, that we know it's going out to the residents. And hey, my computer crashed, or the internet's down and they couldn't send out the call. It will go out to them, but that's not the primary form. Yes, sir.
Do all the shelters now accept pets?
Yes, by law in the state, I think it's federally. I don't think it's actually by state. I think it's federally. All shelters have to accept pets. Now the question being, like I said, the pets is sort of a loosely, you walk in with your llama, they may like, what are you doing? But they will make arrangements and help you out any way that they can, yeah.
But if you send out buses for a large area?
Yes.
They can go on the buses?
Yep, we've had tabletop drills, and during these tabletop drills, we usually, when we're doing one of these drills, which tabletop drill is ultimately we sit down and talk about a problem that we're having. And usually at those tabletop drills, we'll have firemen, EMS, Board of Education, because we use their buses, stuff along those lines. And the last one that we had, we've been, stressing to them that, hey, if we call you out and we're using your buses for evacuation, that ultimately pets are allowed on your buses. I know normally they're not allowed to, but by law, they're allowed on the buses, the transport buses, and they're allowed in the shelters.
When you had the horses, who took the horses? Did they go to Poplar Park?
No, they didn't. They actually, the horse park worked out very well. I had people that I knew over there. They set up their own stuff. They went to the horse park in New Jersey, which is the one up on 195, that big one that you see when you're going up 195. There's a big horse park there. And they had everything. They had stalls, they had food, they have water, they have everything there. If it's a short-term thing, they'll usually send them down to the Miller Air Park. Miller Air Park, they have larger corrals, but unfortunately they can't separate the horses down. And apparently, I don't know too much about horses other than they're cute, but that's about it. Apparently some horses don't like being in the same pen with each other, so you have to separate them down.
How do we get involved with next? Automatically, maybe?
No, I actually have some paperwork in my bag over there, or my box over there. There's paperwork on it. It's you go on, there's two different ways you can do it, okay? There's one, you can go right onto your cell phone and type in, I believe it's Manchester to 777-888. We have paperwork here. Or you can go onto the website if you have your home computer, and you can go onto your computer that way. I suggest you go onto your computer at home if you have access to it, because what you can do is you can correlate your phone number with a specific address. So we can sort of geolocate stuff.
I get notices from the police department. I believe that comes 777.
Yes, that's Nixle.
So that's in my phone.
Yes, that's in your phone already. You can also go on, if you choose to, from your home computer and log on that way, and you specifically put in your address so they know where you live and say, okay, you live in Leisure Village West at this address. So if I need to send out a notification to Leisure Village West only, I can go on to Nixle that way and say, I need Leisure Village only, and it'll go out that way. They're in there?
Just want to take a minute real fast, jumping on what you talked about, Nexus?
Nixle.
Nixle, okay. We do have a one-call
Yes.
system here, but I rely on you guys because, like you said, I do not want to pass on bad information to the residents. So you might get reminders from us, but definitely rely on what the police, and unfortunately, sometimes, depending on we get this, the reminders are not as timely. You might get it after the fact, the power has already been restored or something like that. So I know people don't always like getting one calls, but we do our best to keep up. But again, please rely on what Manchester Police and OEM tell you.
Yep. The other program that I want to push right now is this one right here. It's called Register Ready. It's a program that's run through the state. There's flyers up here. What this does is you can go onto this website. There's a website. You can actually fill it out on this form here and mail it in, or you can actually call them. And what this does is if you have any special needs or special needs people in your household, you can register with them. Just for argument's sake, if you have somebody that's bedbound in your house, you can fill this out and say, hey, you know what, there's 2 people living in this house. My wife is bedbound. She's unable to walk. walks with a walker, hearing impaired, whatever the case may be, and you can pick multiple things. And what happens is when we call for an evacuation, I'm going to call for an evacuation of Leisure Knoll. I'm going to go into Register Ready, and I'm going to pull up Leisure Village and say, I need to know all the bedbound people. And it's going to print out a list of all the bedbound people for me. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our first aid. We're going to get as many ambulances in here as we can, and I'm going to say, here's the list. You guys coordinate, go to all these houses and check on these houses and get these people out. Without this, I don't know. I could come in here, there's 2,700 homes in here. There could be 500 people that are bedbound in this development, and I'd have no idea. So that's what this does. Now this form, a lot of people are very reluctant to put out personal information. This is extremely secure. Myself, the Chief of Police, and Connor are the only 3 people in Manchester Township that have access to this information. Okay? We're the only ones. And I can't even get access to a neighboring town. If I wanted to go on to, Register Ready and go to, I need to know all the bedbound people in Toms River. It won't give it to me. So they keep very strict control over it. And what they do, it's a state-run program in conjunction with the county and ultimately the municipalities. And what the county does every year, they'll call up. If you register in this program, they'll call up every year. They'll have one of their CERT team members, which is a volunteer, call up and say, they'll call the phone number on here. Hey, does Robert Sharry still live at this house? Yes, he does. Okay, then they leave it active. If you turn around and say, nope, Robert Sharry moved, he passed away, whatever the case may be, he's moved to a different facility, they then remove it so it's an active list. I don't have a list of people that are 5 years old and aren't there anymore and checking on a bunch of people that aren't there. I know that this list won't be any more than a year old. So when these emergencies occur, I can send the help, the ambulances ultimately, to the people that need it. If you're perfectly capable of getting up and walking and talking and driving, hey, I don't have to send somebody to your house. But your neighbor, on the other hand, may be bedbound, may be hearing impaired so they don't hear their phone, may be sight impaired, whatever the case may be. I'll get the people to them that need the help. The other thing I wanted to bring up real quick, and I don't know how much time I'm running out or how much time I'm at right now, is we refer to them as go bags. Okay? Everybody should have a bag in their house that someplace near the front of their house, near their front door, whatever the case may be, that has your essential needs in it. And when I say your essential needs, I mean a spare set of car keys for your car, cell phone charger, at least 2 or 3 days worth of medication if you're on medication. You can put clothes in there, you can put protein bars, stuff along those lines. And what that bag is used for is if you have a fire in your house, God forbid, you can grab that bag, you at least have 2 or 3 days worth of medication in that bag till you can get to a pharmacy. If you have to evacuate the house, you can grab that, you'll have a set of keys. And I use my daughter as an example all the time. She comes over our house and she drops her keys wherever. I have a tendency, I hang them up on a hook right by the door. She comes in and she does one of these things and walks away. If there was ever an emergency in the house, she'd run out of the house and the car keys would be left in the house because she wouldn't know where they were. So that's why we say a spare set of keys. Medication inside the house. Like I said, if your house, God forbid, has a structure fire in it, whatever the case may be, or there's a woods fire, you're going to need that medication. And I say 3 days because if it happens on a Friday, you have to be able to get through Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Till Monday, you can get to the pharmacy and say, hey, I had a fire in my house. I need more medication. And they'll get you more medication. They may need a police report, something along those lines, but they'll get you more medication. Same thing, cell phone charger. How many people run out of their house and don't bring their cell phone charger with them? Throw another one in that bag. Have that stuff that you need. If you need to leave your house quickly, I really don't want you running around your house looking for stuff. What you can also put in that bag is copies of your birth certificate, copies of your passport, whatever the case may be. Keep that in there. So when you go out of your house, you at least have ID, your cell phone, car keys, medication, the stuff you need to survive for a day or 2, 3, in that bag. Pet food, if you're taking, obviously if you have pets, and I have 3 of them, some sort of small amount of pet food so you can, get food for them as well. Because in an evacuation, like I said, if it's a localized small evacuation, it's not that big of a deal. You know what, if we have a small, I don't want to say small fire, a fire here in Manchester, it's not that big of a deal. You can go down to Tom's River and you can get stuff. If you have a Hurricane Sandy type event, that affected pretty much the entire state. So that's when you're going to run into a problem. You're not going to be able to run down to Walmart in Tom's River because that's going to have the same problem that we do. So, questions, comments, concerns? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I have Nexel.
Yes.
I get the messages on email. My phone number is a digit off.
Okay.
I can't contact Nexel anymore. I've got frustrated. I can't get into this system. Is there somebody at Manchester?
Yes, if you call in and you ask for one of our dispatchers will be able to walk you through. But if you go right onto your phone, and I usually have paperwork, and I didn't bring it with me, that explains to you how you can go on there. But what I can do is I can send it over to Jacqueline, and she can put it out as well. Because there's a way to go on, and I believe it's if you text Manchester to 777-888, it will automatically register your phone number. I don't know how it got one. If you did it that way, it shouldn't be one digit off. If you manually entered it, it could be one digit off. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question on power outage, the whole area.
Yes.
And handle power outage, like with the police department, with the residents, and everything else.
It really depends upon, like I said, and I said before, how long the power outage is going to be. You know what? I hate to say, and it's a standing joke in the police department. If you call JCP&L and ask them how long the power is going to be out, it's 1 to 2 hours. It's always 1 to 2 hours. I have somebody that's actually a retired chief of police that's our township liaison that I get in contact with, and he's the one that gives me legitimate time frames and say, okay, well, it looks like it's probably going to be 6 or 7 hours. He'll call the supervisor out on the scenes, tell me how long the power outage is going to be. Once we determine how long the power outage is going to be, that's going to determine if we open up a shelter, the time frame, you know, and also the time of year. The temperature makes a big difference. If we're in the dead of summer and it's 110 degrees out and, you know, 150% humidity, you know, we may end up opening a cooling shelter down, which are facilities that have generators or are still on power that have air conditioning to cool people off. Same thing, dead of winter, we're gonna open up shelters that have heat in them if it's gonna be a prolonged period of time. If you're talking about an hour or two, most likely we're not gonna open up a shelter at that point because it takes me an hour, hour and a half to open a shelter. If it's gonna be back on in 2 hours, no, it doesn't make sense for us to do that. But we're gonna send out nixles as well at that point and the reverse 911 calls and say, hey, if you're having a problem, if you're cold, you know, we have a shelter opened up at, you know, Manchester Township High School, just for argument's sake.
Yeah, I'm looking more at it without the cell phone, without landline, no power at all. How is to contact me to everybody?
Well, unfortunately, that at that point, you know, if you're sitting there saying your landline usually doesn't require.
Well, I'm talking about a really disaster type of thing. If, God forbid, I wouldn't want that to happen. If there was ever no power in Brick, the police department, fire.
Well, police department's not going to be out of power unless we have multiple failures, and that's one of the things that I do, and Connor does as well. We make sure that the police department's not going to be out of power. We have battery backup. We have generators that are big enough to power the whole building. We should be able to. That building should be able to run indefinitely. Even if we had major power outages that were weeks long, that should still run. Yeah, hopefully I don't knock on wood. Because then I didn't do my job if it goes down. It'd be really bad. But we had, and I don't know how many of you have been around here for a little while, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 2020. We had a truck pulling an excavator hit the power lines directly in front of headquarters. And took out, we were without power for probably a week and a half, 2 weeks. But the building ran just as it was designed to do. Because we had we have a big generator that runs that entire complex, that runs the entire municipal building. All our emergency service buildings, fire, police, EMS, are all on generator backup. The volunteer fire companies all have generators. You know, all of our emergency services can run pretty much indefinitely.
Where are you located?
I'm located at Manchester Township Police Headquarters. Yep. 1 Colonial Drive right down here, right at the municipal building. I have my own office up front because, like I said, I'm a police officer and I'm an Office of Emergency Management. So I'm at both. Any other questions? Yes. Yes, you can do both. You can either do that, text Manchester to 777-888. Okay, sorry.
So if you wanted to, if you type in 888-777-3837 and text help to it, it'll send you a text message. You can also go on to the police department's website, and if you scroll down to the bottom, it'll say, let's see what it exactly says. It'll say emergency notifications. You just click that, click sign up. It's going to walk you through every single step. That's where you can enter your cell phone, your email, your address.
And it will send out, it'll send out multiple ways.
So that would be manchesterpolice.com?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Can you put multiple phone numbers in?
It'll allow you to do, actually, it looks like a cell phone and then a
Landline.
But you could register multiple phone numbers, as many as you want. It doesn't matter. It's just, you got to have the phone on to make it worth your while.
Yeah, the phones have to be on and charged for them to work. Unfortunately, if the phones aren't on and charged, there's really not too much we can do other than drive around and do notifications over a PA system. But obviously, if there's a major problem going on, we're going to be tied up trying to help people. We really shouldn't be out, with a PA system saying evacuate the area. We would do it, but we should be out helping people evacuate and sending them to people, sending the help to people that registered on Register Ready. Questions, comments? Okay.